Hello friends, welcome to this little video clip. If you're interested in listening to a little story from Uncle Steve, stick around and I'll share that with you. But before I do, I wanted to put a little bit of a foundation to what I'm about to talk about. And that is that this month of June, is known as the Mental Health Awareness Month. If you are aware, there's about 4,000 people every year that lose their battle to mental health. And 3/4 of those people are men. So, but this pertains to anyone. This story is definitely, it's almost like an analogy or a parallel, as Jesus spoke in parallels, right? This is kind of what that is. No, I'm not Jesus. But he would speak in these parallels because it helped people understand a little bit better. It helped people apply and understand the context. And today's story starts with about a year and a half ago with me wanting to go on a hike. And I mean like a real hike, like not what I used to call a hike before was basically a walk in the woods, maybe along maybe a river, but sort of a padded down path, maybe those little rocks or concrete or even just grass. But I wanted to go on a real hike. So about a year and a half ago, I have some great friends out in the West Coast and they brought me on a real hike. At least for me and my standards. Some of you would think, no, this is easy. But it was a really good time. And Melissa and I were just chatting this week about mental health and about some of the things that come along with that. And I've been not shy to express some of the challenges that I've had through since I've been sort of on the interwebs a little bit. But in the last little while, it's been extra tough for me. And this is definitely not a woe is Steve. This isn't that at all. This is just some of our conversation that I thought was so valuable that I wanted to share it here. So a year and a half ago, I go out west and I wanted to go on a hike. So I was taken on a hike. And if you've ever heard of the Bugaboos, that's where I went. You can Google that. And I feel like I'm in relatively good shape. It's to go on a hike, I had good footwear, I had the proper clothing, and the things. I brought my camera. In fact, I've even posted pictures of some of the mountains on here and there. But the interesting thing about this hike is we started in the morning, and the particular path, the sun is kind of coming up on that side, and as you begin your training, your trek through, you are exposed a lot to the sun, to the direct sunlight as you walk through, and just beautiful views, and you sort of lose the idea that you're on a hike in as much as like you get lost in the moment, because you look around, it's just so gorgeous, and you just got to think, my goodness. And me as a man of faith, I'm like, God, you painted this, and this is so beautiful. And you begin to kind of continue to climb a little bit and to walk along. And now there's me and there's two other friends, and these two other friends were walking along. I was sort of following in behind. I'd never been here before. I would say a relative rookie when it comes to actual hiking. So we're trekking along, and a couple of times these friends turned to me and they saw me, and I'm just in awe of everything that's around in my journey. And they said, "Wow, Steve, like you look great. Like you're not even huffing and puffing, and good job. It's clear that you work out." And so anyway, we continued our trek, and we got up to a big chalet that was built there for hikers to come and sort of rest. I think you can even rent it out. You can stay up there a few nights. People go up there and camp. There are different things. There's like a kitchen. There's no like real running water, but there's like a kitchen area. There's tables, and then there's 2 floors. And the second floor, you can go up a set of stairs, and you'll see bunks that are lined up. And people will go there and spend a night or two or whatever, and they'll explore around and come back, kind of like a base camp. I would call it the Bugaboo base camp. But the views from there are just spectacular. And so the journey to get there was not easy. I mean, I may not have looked like I was huffing and puffing, but I'll tell you, my heart rate was up. I got my sweat on. And it's interesting because you got the sweat on, but the breeze is there, right? So what can happen there. It's like you don't feel that necessary drain from you because the breeze is there and it feels nice, and you just kind of keep going one foot in front of the other. Stop and grab some water and whatnot. So we got to this chalet area, and we sat next to this little, I couldn't paint a picture that's as beautiful as it was for you, but I was sitting next to this little brook that was kind of coming down through the little mountain crevice part there. I remember I even got my water bottle and that's where we had lunch. And just the beautiful scenery was just breathtaking. And of course I'm snapping photos along the way. And so I was sitting down for probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it was. And then I stood up. And folks, let me tell you, everything in my legs from sort of waist down seized to a point where I couldn't move. I didn't know what was happening to me. Like, I'm talking like my adductors and abductors was like the inside of your thighs, my quads, my gluteus maximus, all that stuff was seizing so tight. I was like, oh boy, I sat down for too long. This is no good. So I tried to move around a little bit, and we're getting ready to go down. And I remember my friends kind of looking at me and seeing that I'm hobbling now. You understand, I'm 6'4", 250 pounds, right? This isn't, you can't put me in your pocket and bring me down. And they said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah, I think so. I just got to like walk this and sort of," and I began taking some steps. I began to take some movement, take some steps. And my one friend, he had some walking poles with him. And he said, "Look, man, you know, I think you can use these poles. So go ahead and take them," because he saw that I was clearly suffering. So I did, and they helped a little bit. They helped, and I started to be able to walk a little bit better, kind of grab my balance. But after a little while, I'm not very far, we started walking down. The chalet was still very much in my view, just back up there a little bit, you know, and everything in me just seized, and I couldn't go on. I couldn't go on. And I remember I fell back against a rock, and I finally uttered these words to my friends: "I can't do it. I need help." And it was clear that the poles helped me a little bit, but that wasn't quite enough. I needed help. And it took everything in me to say those words: "I need help." Because again, a guy who works out, you know, a police officer, big, strong man, right, shouldn't need help. Bah! You got a beard. I needed help. I couldn't do it. So the person who looked like they had it all together, going up this path, wow, Steve, you're in shape. Look, you're not even half. I looked like I had it all together, but it wasn't until I stopped, until the noise, everything just sort of settled, and then my muscles began to really cramp. I think my bone marrow even cramped. That's not a thing, but everything cramped, and I couldn't go on. And even though, so the poles were like when someone says to me in my mental health journey, "Hey, if you need anything, let me know." Okay, thanks. Maybe even a step further, say, "Here's my number, reach out to me," or a text, "Hey, how you doing?" And those are very good things to do. Absolutely. Those are like the poles. They help me a little, and sometimes that's all you need. Sometimes you just need a little bit of bracing, right? A little bit of support for when you're walking and carrying out your journey. But for me, I was in a position where that wasn't enough. I need help. So we were faced with decisions. You know, what do we do now? Steve's on the side of this mountain. There are people, like other people that I don't know. There's my friends there. So we ended up going back up to the chalet. And I remember going inside, sitting down at a table. And it took, folks, let me tell you, it took everything in me to get back up because everything was so seized. And now some of you are listening to this and you're like, I know exactly what's going on. I didn't at the time. And I sit down in these tables in the chalet. And I'm like, well, like, what do we do? So we started entertaining the idea of, do I need to get rescued? Do we need to call a rescue team to come and take it? Now, because of the terrain, there's no way that you can like sort of put my, you know, arm over your shoulder and walk me down. It's way too crazy for that. So of course you think helicopter. I think, great. Here is the police officer up on the side of the mountain who gets stuck. I can just see the news now. And I'm like, we can't do that. And I start thinking about cost, you know, like, what does it even cost? And you know, you're just sort of brainstorming about what do we do? I thought, well, maybe the answer is, what if I just stay here the night? If I stay here the night, maybe I can regroup and maybe tomorrow I'll be fine. And then one of my friends had one of those little spot sort of things that you can sort of send text no matter where you are. Listen, those things are worth their weight in gold, especially if you're out and about in the wilderness, right? So anyways, shameless plug, I don't know it, but look at one of those spot things if that's you, because he was able to communicate with his spouse, who was able to communicate with my spouse about the situation, what was going on. And my spouse got the message back to me that said, hey, this happened to you once before when you were in the north in Saskatchewan and your legs seized up. And then it hit me. I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about it. And the issue was, I had been completely depleted of all electrolytes, of all like water. I was sweating, and the wind that cools you down, you don't even realize it. And my muscles were completely dried out, and I couldn't move. And then my friend had some connections in that area about the helicopter rescuing Big Steve from the mountain. And he said, he was climbing up that side. Okay, so that means the sun would have been on him. He would have been a lot of sweating. He's a bigger guy. So he's like, it's the electrolytes. He needs to drink salt water and or electrolytes. So I had strangers coming up to me, seeing the pain. Because I actually went up to the second floor of this building, and I was laying down. I couldn't move. And folks, I was in such a desperate situation, and I was in the most vulnerable situation. I was laying down while my friends and strangers were walking around me, standing over me. I was completely helpless. I needed help. And I remember a stranger gave me a pack or two of these like electrolytes. He said, "This is all I have, but I want you to have it." And folks, in life, you will walk around, you will stand around people who are at their most vulnerable. It'll be at a point where they are totally wrecked. And the little thing that you may have may be the thing that you need in order for you to get back up. So my friends, we started talking about all these things. They said, "Steve, we're here with you. We're not leaving you." We even talked about them, leaving me for the night and then to come back the next day to help me down, all those things. "Steve, we're not leaving you." And they stayed with me. And I began drinking these electrolytes. I began drinking salt water. I began to, trying to massage as much as I can my legs. Like I was scared. I was scared, and I needed help. And I knew I couldn't get down on my own. I had the tools. Like I have the legs. I have the appendages to get down, but they were wounded, and they weren't working properly. So my friend said, "We're staying with you, and we're gonna get through this together." And we were there for, I don't know how long, maybe an hour longer than we had planned. I don't know how long it was. Messaging back and forth to home and all that. And when it hit me about the sun and the sweat and the depletion of my muscles, my friends were there to now say, not just here's my poles, although they gave me the poles again so I can come down, but they were with me. They stood with me. So friends, I'm going to wrap this story up with this. It's one thing to be down and out. We all get there. And it's another thing to say to someone, "Hey, reach out if you need me." I'm here to tell you that that's not in and of itself good enough for the most part, for most of us. I needed someone to say, here's water, drink this. I needed someone to say, "Here, take this." Sometimes we need people in our life to say, "Here I am. I am right here. You need this." Not, "Hey, tell me what you need." Because sometimes we don't know what we need. Sometimes we're in a position where all we see is the pain that we're dealing with. All we see is the fact that I'm someone who's supposed to be capable. I'm someone who got up here. I got myself into this mess, so I need to get myself out of this mess. Friends, sometimes we need people to say, no. You take this, you do this, and I'm here with you as you do it. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. For me, it was an understanding that I was depleted. And sometimes in life, we get depleted. And we need friends to do more than just, "Here's my poles." Or in other words, "Here I am, reach out if you need me." I'm thankful that I have friends that said, "Here, take this. Let's do this." And after a little bit of time, I started feeling better. I stood up, I started walking around. And even then, I wasn't alone. Even though I felt like I can do this, and maybe on my own, my friends wouldn't leave me. They wouldn't allow me to walk on my own. I think I remember them like sandwiching me, so that I can follow and I can be followed. So I'm in the middle as we're going down to ensure that every step. And when I got down to the bottom, I remember it was such a relief because I didn't have to call a helicopter. I didn't have to stay the night. All those different things. I was relieved. And I looked at my two friends. Of course, I thanked them. And to them, it was just, well, yeah, of course. So friends, when you have those people in your life, cherish them. And whatever you do, whatever you're going through, I don't care if you got yourself in that mess. I don't care if it was a domino of decisions that you made to create the current situation where you're maybe seized up. Maybe that's it. All that stuff is whatever hearsay. Learn your lessons. Friend, listen to me. When I go on even the simplest of walks now, I bring a lot of water and electrolytes if needed. I've learned my lesson. But the biggest lesson I learned, the biggest takeaway I had from that moment, and I want you to take from this little story, is never be afraid, because they can literally save your life, of those little words, "I need help."